Hello everyone, it's Will Vincent from GlacierTV here, and it's the first of our Pro Series 2013 interviews with the guy who has the sexiest hair in all of iRacing, which is the reason why we decided to give you a very low quality webcam. It's Christopher Taylor Overland, the driver of the number 47 Menard Chevrolet. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Self-esteem boost right there for the hair compliment.
Do you get swag points for that?
I think you do. I don't know. I haven't checked in a while. We'll have to see if I've accumulated any.
We'll check the swag rulebook. Let's talk about your iRacing career. You joined iRacing in 2010. You were in the 2011 NASCAR iRacing Pro Series. You were the 61st seed and you came home 12th, which therefore put you into the 2012 iRacing Series World Championship, as it was called back then. Take us through that first Pro Series, because a lot on the line, your first time in it, and you got yourself a pretty good showing.
Yeah, a lot of people. Well, there's a lot of controversy surrounding how I got into the Pro Series, and a lot of people didn't think that I deserved a license, and I can understand that. When I got there, I don't know. I guess it was just survival, and I mean, I knocked off 3 top 15s the first couple races of the season, and I ended up being third in points at one point, and I kept at it, and we ended up 12th, and got into DWC, and I'll tell you that was probably the most memorable time of my racing career, because there was so much surrounding the Pro Series. Then there was a lot going on, and it was really fun.
And then 2012, you raced in the Drivers' World Championship. You were classified as the 37th seed. You had a pretty up and down season. It looked pretty good for the start of it, and then the middle end part, not the way you wanted it to go.
Yeah, I didn't run all the races. That's a big problem. Um, if I had, I would have been all right. There was a lot of people who didn't complete the entire 2012 Pro Series, and I don't know. There was a lot that went on, but I mean, we got back into the Pro Series this year, so we're climbing our way back up. And I'm gonna dedicate myself to it this time around, and we're gonna maybe go for a top 5, maybe win the championship. There's a lot that can be done on my new team, Last Row Motorsports.
You talk about how, last year didn't necessarily go the way it did. I remember back on the 2012 Pro Series, there was a lot going on in your world. You're classified as the 7th seed, you only came home 35th. Was it disappointment, or was it a chance to then, take stock of your iRacing career and rebuild yourself?
Well, at the time, I did have a lot of other things going on, so there wasn't much attention being paid to iRacing. But when I did show up, I gave it my all, and I knew I could make pro, or I could make the World Championship Series again had I dedicated myself the whole season. So when I got back into the scheme of things, I dedicated myself 100%, and I got myself on a good team. I got myself with a good group of guys who just happened to make really fast setups and made me look really good. So I I made it, and we're gonna see how this Pro Series goes this time around, and hopefully the people who doubt me from time to time will no longer do that. But you never know.
And let's talk about your new team, Last Row Motorsports. And you've given them a lot of credit on iRacing, on Facebook, and to be fair, your Facebook status is always entertaining. But you've given quite a lot of credit to Last Row Motorsports. Just how important has it been to kind of land back on your feet and join such?
Oh, it's a huge opportunity. I'm actually going to tell you the story about how that happened, and it's a little bittersweet because my good buddy Nick Morse had to go through some extensive pain, physical pain, for me to end up on that team. He had ACL surgery. He got injured playing football, or I think that's the story. I'm not really quite sure, but he did have a ACL injury and he needed surgery. And there was nobody racing Class A that week because Nick was the one who was building the setup that week, and everybody else was taking a break because DWC wasn't going to Pocono, or they had already went. So Nick comes to me and asks me to drive the setup, and I knew at that point I was trying out. So I drove, well, for lack of a better word, I drove the hell out of it, and they contacted me. They said, well, you've got potential. We'll see how you do. Got me on the team, and here we are now. I've made great friendships with them, and they're a real good group of guys. I'd already been acquainted with most of them, but you know, you never really know until you get on a team and spend a lot of time with people how they actually are, and it's a top level group of guys there.
And the friendship part, I mean, I've been a team manager in IndyCar for, about 2, 3 years now. And the friendship part always seems to be the thing that makes or breaks a team. Be it, if you're working with a good group of guys and you're having good times, it's all great. But when you go through the bad times, you really get to kind of understand, who your friends are, who maybe not your friends are. But how important do you think that close bond that you have with the guys over at Last Road is going to have on the wonderful journey that we call the iRacing.com Pro?
Well, I think it has a big deal to do with it. Chemistry in a team is always good. I've been on some really good teams that we've provided good setups and we've worked well together, and the chemistry just wasn't there, and so it didn't last very long. I've been on multiple teams where there have been people I haven't gotten along with, and it just breaks it. You don't want to work with somebody you don't get along with, and it hurts it. So it's good to have a group of guys that know what they're doing and that you can reason with if there's a disagreement. And not to say that there's been one yet, but I'm sure when that day comes that we'll handle it professionally and handle it like most people would assume this team would, because it's really a professional thing over there. There's not much going on other than working on the cup setups for pro and things like that. And we take it seriously, so it should be a good mixture.
Let's talk about the pressure put on you when you're racing. Of course, the DWC races, all broadcast on GlacierTV. Pro Series this year, as far as we're aware, not being broadcast, but you are essentially racing to get back on to, essentially sim racing TV. And, of course, the deals that GlacierTV have with the New England Sports Network, so on and so forth. It's no longer just about the fact that you're racing a virtual game. There's a lot more kind of publicity and popularity around it. So how much does that feed into the pressure that you deal with when you're on a racetrack?
Well, for me, I look at it as sim racing is an ever-populating sport, we'll call it. And it's growing rapidly. And pretty soon here, it's going to branch out and it's going to become recognized, and it's going to become, it's already officially sanctioned, but it's going to be taken as such. It's not going to be a bunch of kids, a bunch of people playing a video game. It's going to be bigger than that. And the way I look at it is, when that happens, I want to be as close as I can be to the top, because when it branches out, there's going to be so many people looking for it, and there's going to be so many people trying to get to where I've been and so many other people have been, and it is an elite group of guys. So when it does branch out and it gets to where I hope it'll be one day, that's what I'm racing for. I'm not necessarily, I don't think I have the equipment or, well, the talent to win the $10,000, but just to be a part of something as big as that makes it for me. So the pressure of running the Pro Series is pretty big, because you never know when they're going to cut it off. And they're going to say, we're not going to do that. We're going to stick with these group of drivers, and we're going to do this or do that with it. So just staying in it, staying involved is a big thing for me. So when it came down to this last season and I knew it was make or break, I gave it my all, because it's a long journey to make pro. It's really long and it's really difficult, and if you don't make it in the first 3 seasons, you got to wait 6 more months till you can even attempt, and then after that it's another 6 months until you can run pro. So it's a big deal as far as time restraints are, and so I do take it seriously, and it is a lot of pressure.
Now, let's talk about how your competitors, how do you think that you are perceived when you're running 20, 30 other guys?
Well, I like to be considered at least a threat for a top 5. Just sneak in there every once in a while. There was a joke the pro drivers used to do back in 2011 and 2012. They had a bingo board thing, and I knocked off those top 10s at the start, and they made it made one of the bingo slots Overland surprise top 10. So I like to be at least considered for a top 10 every once in a while. But I don't know. Maybe we'll sneak out and get a surprise win here or something. I mean, you can never count anybody out. There are a lot of people who didn't think Alex Warren could win the 2011 Pro Series championship, and he surprised everybody with that. So I mean, anything can happen. I'm not counting myself out.
And talk about that. I mean, many people thought, that Hudson couldn't win this year's Series World Championship, and that raises an interesting point, especially the way the NASCAR scoring works. It's different to on the roadside, where you've got a big difference between P1, P2, and then P2 to P3.
Yeah.
Whereas on the NASCAR side, it's essentially just 1 point difference all the way down. So it's the consistency that's the important part there. So you talk about, being a threat for a top 10 and maybe an outside chance at a win. Do you bear that in mind when you're racing in such a series? Yes, you've got the chance to go to victory lane, but at the same time, you make a wrong move, you could lose 10, 20 places, and with that, lose a huge gap in the championship where the score was always after that.
Yeah, I like to look at it that way. I like to look at it from a points perspective. I don't look at it from a race to race type of situation. Considering taking into consideration the people that I'm racing with, we'll just say earlier this season in Pro Series, around week 9, week 10, I had an opportunity to clinch, and I had a chance to pass a couple people, and I put the spotlight on those people, and I looked at it and I said, okay, as long as I beat them week in, week out, I make it. So I'm not the type of guy who tries to go out and get every single point that he can possible. You don't got to be faster than the bear. You just got to be faster than the person behind you.
I think that's a pretty good sentiment. Menards, explain.
Well, I came up to Paul Menard one day. I got some hot passes from Landon Castle, and I went to the garage, and I had a little form for Paul, and I have it in my wallet if I could find it. I don't believe it's around here, but I walked up to Paul. I asked him if he was interested in. I asked him about whether he knew about it or not. He had been acquainted with it, and I gave him the form. He signed it, and now I got Menards on the car, and it's awesome considering I'm a huge Paul Menard fan. It's great to be able to run the same logos as your heroes.
Does that add anything to the way that you act or race on track, knowing that in some way, shape, or form you're representing Menard, Paul Menard, the entire organisation?
Well, I mean, everybody's got their own personality, their own, brand, so to speak, as far as, Jimmy Johnson's the type of guy who's quiet about things. He's really modest. He's the opposite of Clint Boyer Clint Boyer is always vocal. He's got his, he's a character, everybody's got
energy.
their different.
That's the reason.
Yeah.
It's all over the place.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody's got their own personality, and everybody's got their own driving style and their own way that they perceive things. So I'm not really trying to, represent Menards in a way that Paul Menard would. I'm trying to represent it in my own way, but in a sense, I do have the logos. I do have to keep my head on straight, which is kind of hard to do with all this hair. But, I mean... Well, I do my best, and I think that's all that anybody wants to do.
Let's move away from the racing. And what kind of ticks your boxes when you're filling out? Of course, I know your music is huge in your life, but what else? Except for falling in love and all that stuff.
Oh, don't get me started with that. No, definitely music. Music's a big part of it. Watching NASCAR races, food. I am a food enthusiast. I love cooking. I get a lot of enjoyment out of cooking food. It doesn't always turn out the best, but I mean it's fun. So aside from racing, the necessities in life, I guess.
And favorite bands right now?
Favorite bands? I actually got recently back into some Cage the Elephant and some Pink Floyd. I've been listening to a lot of them. They're yeah, we're taking it back. There's not much more than that, actually. I'm kind of a if you like it, stick to it kind of person. So I get waves of certain types of music, and right now I'm on that.
Like it. I think I've almost run out of questions. Ask me something to ask you.
Well, you can ask me about
I'm going to ask you about
you
your
can ask me
swag.
about, oh, what's that?
I'm going to ask you about your swag.
Oh, I don't have any swag, but if you'd like to find out ways to get some swag, you can go to lastrowmotorsports.com. They've got a website, and it'll generate swag from the monitor onto you. I guess I'll just take this time to thank all the people who helped me make into pro. Charlie Foster, Joey Brown, Nicholas Morse, all the LRM guys. I'd like to thank you for putting on this interview. I'd like to thank the people at YouTube, on YouTube and wherever this is being posted, for not making comments about my luscious hair and supporting the Pro Series, because without the fans, that'd be nothing.
I'm going to ask you one final question. How long does it take to get the hair
Uh, well, I've done it a couple times over here. 2.8 seconds. We'll go with that.
2.8 seconds. Amazing. Chris, thank you very much for talking to us. In fact, we're
Thank
going to
you.
talk to you guys from the rest of the guys from Last Row Motorsports in a couple of days or so. So you get to join in the action again. Phil Love, you get to get interviewed twice.
Yeah, well, I guess that's what you get when you're on a team like Last Row Motorsports, isn't it?
It's the hair. It's just the hair. Peace out, people. Will Vincent,
Bye.
GlacierTV, the first of our Pro Series interviews. Bye!